we didn't know much about security in the 90s? I'm not kidding. Like, we didn't know what the hell we were doing back then. According to Gutman, quote, VeriSign were, as of March 1998, still issuing certificates with an MD2 hash, despite the fact that this algorithm has been deprecated for some time. This may be because they have hardware which can only generate the older kind of hash. So you have some like magic box, it's hardware, that means it must be secure, that issues a certificate, it's crypto, that way it must be secure, that is actually haunting us to this day. So I've been talking to you about MD2 and saying, hey, it's there from 1996, and still, so what? You've got an MD2 thing from 1996. What are you going to do with it? You can't get anything new to sign with it, so you're not going to be able to do anything like that chosen prefix attack. How could you possibly think there's going to be an issue here? Well, it turns out hashes can fail in many different ways. One way they can fail is just a straight collision. That means I can go ahead and gin up two things that have the same hash. So I can't control any of these things, but I can say, hey, here's two files, same hash. And Xiaoyun Wang actually did this in 2005. This is what caused me to write my MD5 to be considered harmful someday paper, which led to last year's MD5 considered harmful today talk. I didn't like that at first, but then after I got over it, I'm like, that's actually really cool. So that was, the collision attack was in 2005. 2 years later, we got this chosen prefix collision attack, neither of which are going to work for this particular use. There's another class of attack against a hash. And what this class of attack is called a pre-image attack. It says, I have this hash here. I need something else to have this hash. Something different. I may care what, I may not. But I've got this from 1996. I want to make something else today look like way back then in 1996. Pre-image attacks against SHA-1, we have no progress towards. Pre-image attacks against MD5, we have no progress towards. Pre-image attacks against MD4, we have no progress towards. Pre-image attacks against MD2 are another story entirely. It turns out we are getting pre-image attacks against MD2. If we were to get one, here is how you use that self-signature, which has no legitimate use, but here is how you use that self-signature to do something nasty. The first thing you do is you create a certificate declaring, of course, hi, I'm God. This is worthless, because why should anyone believe that you're God? You aren't signed by anyone, no one asserts it, and you're kind of full of it. Now what you do is you modify that certificate that you generate, and you give it the same signature as that root certificate from 1996. So now you have this new thing which has the same hash, and thus the same signature, as the thing from 1996. And then you say, hey, I've got this thing here, it's an intermediate. You know who's going to assert that it's real? The 1996 root. Well, what's going to happen? The browser's going to go ahead, look at the intermediate, and say, okay, this guy says he's God. He says he changed back to this 1996 thing. Does he have a signature from the 1996 thing? Yes. He has the signature of the 1996 thing. It works. What can I say? This does depend on there being an actual MD2 pre-image attack. How hard is that going to be? Well, in 2004, the complexity of this was 2 to the 104. In 2005, the complexity of this was 2 to the 97. In 2008, it was 2 to the 73. Now, our largest known computational efforts, not taking into account memory here, are 2 to the 63. Now, I'm going to show you a graph. Now, what do we do about this graph? We can do the normal thing and just say, well, there's not a problem now, and there's never been a problem found in 1994 that finally burned us in 2008. So why don't we just sit here and do nothing? Or how about we fix a crypto problem before it blows up in our face? Holy crap, they did it. It actually worked. So OpenSSL is like, forget it, we don't need MD2. Firefox is like, gone. Red Hat pulled it from their operating system. VeriSign's been doing a bunch of work. Opera actually has killed it. Apple's killed it. Microsoft's on the verge of killing it. Google removed it from their phones. Everyone basically said, this MD2 thing is crap. I don't need it. This is easy. This would have been such a bigger pain in the butt if it had happened like emergency because the certificate and the attack is out. But no, it was like, well, this is going to burn us. It's going to burn us sometime in the next couple of years. Let's take the next few months. Let's fix the problem. No drama. It was great. And here's the funny thing. It turns out that this certificate from 1996 has a little quirk to it. It doesn't just work for authenticating servers. Now, normally, SSL goes ahead and says, hi, I'm talking to www.docsparrow.com. SSL can also say, hi, I'm Dan Kaminsky logging in. If you have a break for the 1996 cert, you get to assert you are anybody from any company on earth to a secure web server. This would have been a problem. Now it is not. And this was actually not a trait that the 1996 thing had, or the 2008 thing had. Funnily enough, you can actually check to see if a given secure web server, A, supports client authentication, and B, actually trusts this particular certificate. There's something called a certificate trust list. And in SSL, the server will actually tell you, here are the certificates that if you could possibly generate a signature from, I will go ahead and allow you in. So it just volunteers this list to you. Pretty much every Windows IIS server configured to be secure will have the 1996 cert there by default. So, one thing as a takeaway, if you are running one of these secure servers, you might want to remove that particular one from CTLs. You can actually configure that. So, I've been kind of beating up on VeriSign. It turns out this wasn't just their problem. There's also, as of about 2002, Thought, who wasn't yet owned by VeriSign. They were also signing things with MD2. Now, this certificate has expired by now, but it turns out that a few people still have their old expired certificates on there. And I was actually really amused to see that one of the groups that still had a signature was named Rubicon, given that Rubicon was an American con that ended in some interesting scenarios. So, question. Didn't this need to be completely and utterly fixed immediately? No, because we're going to have some time before the actual MD2 attack comes out. Who knows? It might take a few years. But we went ahead and asked, and it was like, hash research is progressing along. We'll eventually break this, but don't worry. So, is that all we can do? Oh God, no. It's X509. This thing has tons of fun. So, there actually are many more things that we can do against X509. Is it possible to use X509 issues to bypass protections in present-day certificate authority operations? So, yes. And the way we're going to do it, so I actually had a couple of co-authors work with me on some of this research. And what my friend Meredith Patterson told me was, this is last year, we were talking about certificates. Was this last year? Yeah, this was last year at CCC. She says to me, I'm going to go home and figure out the precise grammar of a certificate